Leia Healthcare. It's good to live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health Podcast with Carl Henry.
Folks, welcome to the latest episode of the Real Health Podcast in association with Leia Healthcare with me, Carl Henry. On this week's show, I am super excited to be joined by Brian O'Loughlin from Movement101. We're going to discuss one massive area of health that I think people have forgotten about, people don't think about, but it massively impacts everything you do in terms of running, in terms of gym work, in terms of triathlons, in terms of life. And that one thing is mobility. It's crucial for health, crucial for life, but nobody really thinks about it. Men especially are really poor at it, I think. But Brian is going to tell us all about it. Brian O'Loughlin, welcome to the Real Health Podcast.
Thank you very much.
How's it going?
Really good. Thanks for having me in.
Not at all. So listen, tell us about you first and foremost. Mobility is what you do. I came across you from following you on Instagram. You've over 30,000 followers, so you have a huge, big following there. And mobility is what you sell. Yeah.
So essentially, I've been a trainer for the last 12 years. What was it, about 8 or 9 years ago? I had a really bad shoulder injury and I couldn't get rid of it. So I went to every single physio. I couldn't really find what the issue was. There was no specific issue that happened. It was kind of progressive over time. From training, having a bit of tightness, a bit of pain. It got a little bit worse. So it altered my training then. I went to research different modalities, different styles of training to get myself to move better. I was training fat loss clients and they would have little niggles here and there as well. So I just kind of give them a hand. And eventually I got myself moving pain-free. I started to help more people to move kind of better as well. So I started to kind of push fat loss clients away and kind of look to promote, to help people to move better, per se, you know. And our message really comes down to helping people move better for whatever that means to them. So if you go to the gym, if you're an athlete, if you sit at a desk every day, there's a level of mobility that you are going to require as a human. And whatever that means is specific to you. And we believe is a foundation of strength. That's what it comes down to, that a lot of people lack. And mobility is just seen, especially in the fitness industry, as a different thing than what we believe it is. Stretching and foam rolling seems to be the really big popular things to do now, which we don't believe are the best course of action, really.
Tell us about that then. So I know, what is the best course of action that you want, if you want to improve?
So if you think about improving how you move, the brain has to feel safe, and essentially the best way of the brain feeling safe is for you to physically be able to move. So strength is just key. Can you move your hip? Can you move your shoulder? Can you move your body the way you want it to move? Strength, that's all that really matters. Where a foam roller and stretching are way too passive. They can never give you that strength. Now, they may help, but they could facilitate the journey of moving better. But actually, we believe there's a better, more efficient way of doing it, and you don't need to stretch and foam roll if you don't want to. If you like doing them things, keep doing them. There's nothing wrong with them per se. They're just very short term, and most of the research will tell you they're not actually really needed. They can definitely help. They're just not needed.
And in terms of strength, is that strength from lifting things, using like bands, dyno bands, stuff like that?
Anything. So bodyweight training, using weights, using bands, any style of training that you like to do is absolutely fine. I suppose what we do is we kind of train areas that a lot of people wouldn't train. So we train hips, we train spine, we train shoulder, we train feet. So we train specific areas. But I strength train. I build programs for clients in the gym. A good strength training program should cover your mobility. Like, it really is that simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple.
But most people shy away. Is there a difference between men and women? Do you find that men are more have less mobility, or women have more?
No, I don't think it's fair to say women will be more mobile. There's people who are more mobile, definitely. So by nature, we know people will build strength easier, people will respond to certain things better, and people are more naturally flexible. So me, if anyone follows me on Instagram and you see what I do, I'm not naturally flexible. So you can see the stuff that I do and people are amazed by it. I just train this way. So people are definitely more flexible, and you can only reach to a certain level, but everybody can improve how they move and improve their mobility per se. But definitely people have more advantages than others, but that's not a necessary requirement to move better, you know?
And do you think it's becoming more popular?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, we opened Movement101 about 2.5 years ago, and no one cared about that. I've been doing this stuff for the last 8, 9, 10 years, and I was in gyms with other trainers, and they just told me to go and stretch, and no one cares, and laughed at me, and whatever. I believe in what we do, so I kept doing it. And then 2.5 years ago, when we opened Movement101, you know, our aim was to change the face of the Irish fitness industry in the sense of our message, and no one really cared about it per se. And yeah, slowly it's definitely improved, and our message, we believe we've helped kind of deliver this message, and people are latching onto it. So definitely, yeah, we've seen a huge growth in both people interested in what we do, and then people taking that responsibility themselves over the last 2.5 years in particular.
And in terms of the people that you work with, is it, I suppose people listening to the podcast straight away would think, oh, that's for elite athletes or, you know, inter-county players or whatever.
Yeah.
Is your, in terms of people that you work with, is it that or is it broader? Is it
It's definitely broader. I mean, we have our demographic would probably be athletes. The nature of what we do, we train a lot of inter-county footballers. Particularly a good few of the Dublin team, and a lot of people would see me training them on social media. So we do get an awful lot of inter-county footballers into us, or I suppose GAA athletes in general. But we train people, go to the gym, people who just want to physically move better. We actually train people who are in pain. Oftentimes, as much as we're talking about movement, pain is not to do just with movement. Pain is a very real experience that you feel that comes down towards your experience, what you believe you can actually physically do, what you've been told. So empowerment is our message. So it is for everybody. There's no doubt that we have a certain clientele who are more drawn to us, but genuinely 100% it's for everybody.
Okay, so for people listening in, let's pick your brains a little bit. That's
Yes.
what we do here. We bring experts in and pick their brains for our listeners. Someone listening in, how can they tell if they have good mobility or poor mobility? Is there an indicator? Is there a measure they can do?
Yeah, so again, we try to stay away from this idea of having poor mobility, because the idea is how well do you move? What do you want to do for your body? So our biggest indicator is what do you want to do with your body? Can you do that well or can you not? So if you like to train, if you like to play football, if you keep playing, getting injured, doing the thing you love doing, right now, either your volume is too much, whatever it is, but your body can't handle that capacity currently. So we would look at you then and say, can you do what you're asking your body to do well? And if not, then we would look at not necessarily just mobility, but in terms of what can your body physically do. And that's more what we want to, because there's no level you have to reach. What I want to do, what you want to do is so different. So it's so individual. And that's our message. But it is individual in the sense of you take that responsibility for what you want to do, and nobody can do that for you. So it comes down to what you want to do, and I suppose also how much you want to do it. So we deal with so many top-level athletes that they will just, the 1 or 2% difference for them is huge. Mm-hmm. They'll do anything just to find that difference, I suppose. Whereas oftentimes people in the gym will just train through pain, or just think the amount of people that come into me all the time, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70, I'm old, I move this way. My dad always said I moved poorly. Like, it's just not true. Like, you move poorly because you move poorly, and you've so much more control than you either currently realise or what you've been told previously, you know?
What are the most common areas you see when people come in?
I suppose the one area that we always talk about is just the spine in general, just because the nature of the spine itself, it's the impact it has in general, how you move around the hips, around the shoulders, but actually it's the information being fed from the spinal cord up towards the brain in terms of movement. And ask anybody, how often do you train your spine? And people look at you as if you have 4 heads. So, back pain is huge. Again, it's not always a movement issue, but if you can train and move your spine really well, you have the confidence, you have the strength, and you have the ability to move in towards different range of motion, carefree, with confidence, with control. And it's an area that a lot of people don't train, aren't aware of, and are genuinely an awful lot of times afraid to physically move. So it's a huge thing that we definitely work on. I suppose with athletes, we always look at hips, because the nature, for example, of an inter-county footballer, what he does in that pitch is crazy. He's jumping, he's kicking, he's running, he's not stopping at a really high level, at a really high intensity for that 60 minutes for the whole year. So our aim is, can he flex, extend, abduct, rotate his hip? Can his hip do what he's asked him to do? And has he ever trained that before? And the majority have never trained their hip to rotate better. So we train their hip to rotate better. That ball and socket joint literally moves and functions better, so that they have more control, they have more strength to kick a ball, to do what they want to do, becomes much more efficient. So again, it comes down to what you want to do and can you do it well.
And in terms of elite level stuff, have you seen, as say Gaelic, for example, has become a bigger and more professionalised outfit over the course of the past couple of years? The training's become harder, they're training more professional.
Definitely.
Have you seen an increase in mobility issues as a byproduct of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the last 2.5 years, we're dealing with a lot of inter-county footballers. Previous to that, I wouldn't have dealt with as many. So it's not fair to say for me, I've seen more, because you've seen a lot over the last 2.5 years. Inter-county footballers are professional in everything but name, in my eyes. Like, what they do, they have training, they have nutrition, it's 100% professional. And we just deal with a lot of people who don't train these areas, and like they're the exact same. Again, we deal with like Rob, my business partner, works with clients online, and he just dealt with a professional footballer in England who was told that he had to have hip surgery and stop playing football. He's back playing football. He trained with Rob because we trained his hips, we trained his body to do what he asked it to do. So it's not necessarily Gaelic at that top level, it's top level in general. People look at strength and conditioning in terms of let's build muscle, let's get more strong, let's get more powerful, which is definitely needed. But if we can make you move better, which is again is a strength component, physically what you're asking your body to do becomes much, much easier, and you can do that much more efficiently.
Makes sense.
Makes sense?
Yeah, but it makes total sense, and it's been neglected because people don't.
But that's kind of our message anyway. Like for me, like I was in pain, so it was no one thing that did it. I was bench pressing, I was doing stuff in pain. I genuinely had pain. I remember having pain and training through pain. I physically couldn't do what I was asking my body to do. So can I get this to function better? And now all of a sudden, I can do this thing pain-free. So we always think of exercise. We never think of actually what this body can physically do. You know, so if we can control this can move well. Literally, I can do whatever I want to do. And again, the amount of people that come to me who are in pain, or even GA athletes or whatever it is, they love doing what they want to do. They keep getting injured, they keep having pain, they keep having issues, and they can't do what they love to do. So for us, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're doing something that's not working, it's not working. You got to change tact. And genuinely, we believe what we do is, we haven't got all the answers, but we genuinely believe it is the right way to kind of go about it, you know.
Okay, so the starting point for our listeners is to think about your body.
Yes.
And think about your day-to-day life where you have aches and pains that restrict you from doing what you want to do.
And even not necessarily aches and pains, because everyone always thinks about movement as the gym or sport. So it's always them two things. So they never think about the other 23 hours. Forget that because you're asleep for 4, 5, 6 hours. But them other hours of what you're doing with your life. That 1 hour in the gym will burn calories, will build your muscle fine. But you have to be understanding of what you're doing for the rest of your life. So that affects how you move. Like we deal with people, a taxi man who's in a taxi 6 days a week will move completely different than you. You're not in that taxi 6 days a week. And you have to take that into account. And then if you're going to do a gym session that's hugely high intense and you don't move very well, your chance of getting injured is higher, or certainly what you're asking your body to do is going to become much more difficult, and you're going to find it harder to do as you keep doing it, as you get older, etc., etc. So yeah, just think, what do you do every single day, and be mindful of what you do.
Okay, so once you've identified that, you say, okay, you know what? Bending down to tie my shoelaces.
Yes.
My hips are tight, or my back is sore, or I get up in the morning out of bed, my back is sore. You know, you've identified it. What's the next step then to improving it, or and I know that's a very generic, it's a very broad question.
So a generic question becomes a generic answer, which is to move more. Like it really is that simple. Like a lot of people come to me and say, I can't bend over and touch my toes. Well, first of all, that's arbitrary. Who really cares? You don't need to touch your toes. But try and touch your toes every single day for the next month. You'll get better. Like it really is that simple. So if you're finding it hard, difficult to physically, your hips are tight doing something, move your hip more. If you're physically finding that you can't move your spine, your back is tight, move your spine more. If you can't physically bring your arm, how often do you bring your arm overhead every single day? Probably never, you know, until you're adding load in the gym or something. Move more. Like it really is so simple. Like it's don't overcomplicate things, because our message is consistency beats intensity every single time. What do you do consistently? Because that's what the body gets good at. Mm-hmm. So don't overcomplicate it. What can you not do? Do more of that of what you want to do to be able to do it better, and you'll be able to do it better.
Folks, you're listening to the mobility episode of the Real Health Podcast in association with Leia Healthcare with me, Carl Henry, with the wonderful Brian O'Loughlin in studio for Movement 101, making things sound very straightforward, I must say. And the more I think about it, the more straightforward it sounds, which is a really brilliant message for people, because sometimes people can get scared of you're throwing something new at them, which is mobility. They haven't really touched on it before, and if it's too difficult and scary, they just don't go near it. But basically what you're saying is move more. So if if it's a shoulder issue, arm issue, move more. Just move the arm, move the shoulder a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And it's always, I'm not a physio. I have a physical and health activity degree. I'm a personal trainer. I have all this experience of helping people move better. But people come into me and they've been given a diagnosis of this, or this, or this. And I don't care about your diagnosis. It means nothing to me. It's what can you physically do. If you can't do that, we'll get you moving some way, give you that confidence, give you that strength to physically move, you know. Again, no one can give you that strength. As you know yourself, helping people drop body fat or drop weight, you can give them the tools, you can certainly facilitate them on that journey, but you can't you can't do that for them, sorry. So that's the aim. It's your body. You can.
And it's very much the 1% rule. That by getting that little bit better every single day or every single week, that adds up over the course of 10 weeks or 12 weeks to 100%. Massive range of motion.
Again, if you follow me on Instagram, I put up a lot of exercises, and people always come in saying, oh, I tried this one or this one or this one. I'm not doing them just to be fancy. You don't need to do any of them exercises whatsoever. If you have a foundation that's really, really strong, then movements, first of all, become much easier. But actually, all that matters is that foundation, because we know everything stems from that foundation. So you can do this exercise, or what's this perfect exercise? There's no perfect exercise. What do you want to do? Can you do that well? If not, do that. Don't worry about other things or bands or fancy exercises, because again, you're just trying to look for this thing that really is kind of more scratching an itch as opposed to actually dealing with the issue more long term, you know.
So I'm going to throw some scenarios at you now. Normally I do top tips with experts that come in, but I'm going to give you top tips in different scenarios. Your taxi driver analogy got me thinking about that, which is there's loads of people potentially listening right now who are sitting in a car.
Yes.
Or commute for a long period of time in the car all day. They get out of the car. I know after a long run, I'm like that. I get out of the car. A long run yesterday. It's got to Cork today. I go down to Cork. Everything's sore. It's tight. It's kind of just a bit cranky. Back up to Dublin. It's equally as sore and tight and cranky. Yep. But if people find that they are getting those mobility issues, is there anything in the car they can do, or sitting in terms of how they sit or how they hold their body in the car? Or movements? Should they have movement breaks on long journeys, or are there any easy little ways? I would
probably say so. Our message is, unfortunately, there's no good one way to stay still in a car, at a desk. This idea of having a standing desk, we have one, is no good. You keep moving up and down because you keep moving. So your best position is your next position. That's what we say. So movement breaks in the car. So if I drove down to Cork, it would take me 2 or 3 hours. I would have a tight back. I haven't moved for 2 or 3 hours. So as soon as I get out, I'm moving my spine. I'm literally moving around as much as I can, because the aim is the more movement I get, the better I'll physically feel. If you're at a desk or in a taxi all day, get into the habit of moving every single morning and every single evening. It's done 14 times a week. It's like brushing your teeth. You get up and you move your spine. You do 5 reps, 3 rounds of that. It'll take you no more than 5 minutes. If you do that every morning, every evening, I guarantee you, if you sit in that taxi for 8, 9, 10 hours, it becomes much easier because physically you've moved your spine.
Give me that verbally, the move your spine bit. So explain that for people listening.
The cat cow. Yeah? People know the cat cow of yoga?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Downward. No, it's not.
Downward
no, it's not. I don't know yoga. A cat cow or a cat.
Where you pull your spine up in the air,
literally up and down. Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
That's a bit too passive, unfortunately. So you'll see people move their spine up and down.
Yeah.
But it's like one big block.
Yeah.
What a spine is designed to do is literally segment one vertebrae at a time, and that's all we do. But we don't move anything else. We just move your spine. And for the first time you've ever moved your spine properly, believe me, you'll go, what the hell was that? You'll move areas normally around your thoracic to mid-back that you've never, ever moved before. It's crazy. And once you feel that, you go, whoa, and you feel better. Keep doing that. I'm brilliant at doing it. I've done it every single day for the last 3 years. That's the only reason I'm better than you. Like, it really is so simple.
Okay, so talk us through that. So it's hands on the floor, knees on the floor.
On all fours. Your knees directly underneath your hips.
Yeah.
Your hands directly underneath your shoulders.
Yeah.
Imagine then being in the bottom position. So you're kind of twerking your bum back and your back is arched.
So your belly button's towards the floor.
Yes. And then you go first, you tilt your pelvis towards your chest.
Mm-hmm.
You would then start to bring your low back up towards the ceiling. And from there, once you can't go any more with your pelvis, keep going with your pelvis as slow as you can. Push the floor away, round your shoulder blades, up to the ceiling, tuck your chin to your chest and use your breath. You're going to feel your core engage, keeping your arms straight, sink your shoulder blades down, pull your armpits back to your pockets, and literally, as slow as you possibly can, use your upper back to bring your chest down to the floor, one vertebrae at a time. Pull your belly button down to the floor, twerk your bum back to the wall behind you, and you'll get some kind of sensation in that spine, and you'll have moved areas that you've never moved before.
Okay, so you tore through that. I'm looking at Dara. Dara's looking kind of confused.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is that about? So, folks, very simply, it's on all fours, hands and knees. You breathe out, your belly button's down towards the floor, and you start with the lower end of the spine, around where your pelvis is. Yeah.
So if you think of your pelvis to your chest,
and take a deep breath in, you're going to put your head. Your head's going to naturally tilt towards the floor. Your spine's going to come up slowly at the tail end of the spine.
Yes.
And you're going to work your way up through.
Just tilt your pelvis towards your chest.
Yeah.
It will naturally begin to make your low back move.
Yeah.
Once you can't go any more with your pelvis, if you push the floor away and round your shoulder blades up as high as you can. So you're now in a big tucked, flexed position of your whole spine.
Yeah. You should have an arch basically going on. Yeah.
As high as you can. You'll feel your core really engage.
Yep.
So big deep breaths. So keeping your arms straight then, sink your shoulder blades down an inch or two.
Yep.
Now hold here. From there, if you pull your armpits, it's a good cue, but actually think of pulling your arms back to your knees. What that will do will activate your lats and really fire up the muscle in the upper back. Then literally use your upper back to bring your chest, pull your chest through to the floor as slow as you can down your spine, and then pull your belly button down to the floor as you twerk your bum back to the wall behind you. And see, it sounds confusing. There's a lot of cues you need. So I can't emphasize.
So, folks, the way to do this is if you're listening and when you get home, replay it again. Get to this point.
Yeah.
Just note exactly where we are. We are 18 and a half minutes in. Let's call it 18 minutes into the interview. Come back to this phase. Get on the floor and do it. Trust me, once you do it once or twice, you'll nail it very, very quickly.
Yes, but that's the idea with this. Like, there's cues you need. People come to me, and I go through this movement, and they're like, it's like driving a car. They're working so hard mentally because they've never, ever, ever, ever once in their life moved their spine. But just like driving a car, keep driving it, keep driving it, keep driving it, and it gets so easy. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you understand what you're trying to do, keep doing it. And you have to get better.
So if you're commuting a huge amount, if you're driving a taxi, if you're driving a bus or a train or a Lewis or basically anything, that you're in a seated position all day in a car, put movement breaks in it as part of your day, in the morning, in the evening. If you're going a long journey, put those movement breaks in when you get to the garage to fill up.
Yep,
just move the spine a little bit, get out and move it around,
yeah.
and throw in some of those some of the cat yoga exercises in the morning and in the evening, and that'll keep your mobility really good. Talk to me about the office environment then.
Yes.
We do a huge amount of corporate work. We go into offices all the time.
Yeah.
You see really bad postures. You lecture, tell me, who's got issues. Oh, my back's really sore, or my neck's really sore, or there's loads of issues there in terms of just, again, being seated for such a long period of time. Movement in the workplace, or any core exercises in the workplace. Good man, Gav. Gav's sitting up very tall over there. Yeah,
I like that. Good. So look, we do a lot of corporate work as well. We do a lot of workshops and stuff for corporate companies. And our message is, again, there's no such thing as perfect posture. There's just no good one way to sit still. So you can come in and get the best ergonomic desk in the world. You can sit up really tall. That's not going to change how you physically feel, unfortunately, over the long term. And actually, most of the research will tell you that posture is not a good indication of pain. So what we try to instill when we go in towards corporates is to instill this message of movement in the office environment. So again, simple movements that we would go through to encourage people to physically move. Again, get into the habit of moving every morning, every evening, having movement breaks per se. And the best position is the next position. So again, having a standing desk to come back down again to sit, move positions all the time, every 30 minutes, every 60 minutes. Sitting down is the new smoking, is what people say. It's not that bad. It really isn't. But the issue people have is they use movement in these massive high intensity chunks of the gym and sport. Move. The body is craving movement. Give it more, give it more, give it more. It's so simple.
So use the stairs instead of the lifts. On your lunch break, get outside, go for 5-10 minute walk, move the shoulders, spine, make sure they rotate. Just throw.
Move in any way you want to move.
A lot of it comes back to personal awareness, maybe is a better word.
But that's the biggest thing. So what we say to the clients is that once you are aware of all of this, you can never, ever, ever lose this awareness. Now, what you choose to do with it is on you. Mm-hmm. But if you come in towards me and I tell you, it's on you to do something about this. If you don't, that's fine. But don't blame somebody else. So it's not as bad for us not seeing in an office environment every single day. But if I was in an office environment, I would move as much as I can every single day. I can't emphasize you can move better just by taking that responsibility yourself.
Let's chat children, teenagers, adolescents.
Yes.
Are they getting less mobile with increased sedentary activity?
Yep. I don't know if it's decreased activity per se. I just think what their activity is getting more structured. So when we were younger, we would play. We would just get out and we play. It wasn't a huge issue. Whereas now, I have a child in a way, but my niece and my nephew are 4, 5, 6, and they go to ballet, and they go to sport, and they go to this idea, which is fine, and it's good. It's just very structured, very regimented. And again, all the research will tell you at a young age, children should play. If they play one sport for a long time, they get very good at doing that same movement pattern over and over and over again. And then they lack that mobility or movement elsewhere because they don't go there. So play is huge for children. Play is huge for adults. And play is just seen as moving in a weird and wonderful, fun way in any way, shape or form. So it's not. I don't believe it's due to lack of activity. I believe it's due to more structured activity is a bigger issue with children.
So if you're a parent, which you're soon to be, it's possibly worth looking at the activities that your child does and make sure that they kind of do lots of varied.
Exactly.
If they are structured, which a lot of it is now for
and there's nothing wrong with structure per se,
reasons, but that there's a variation.
Exactly.
So there's a swimming, there's a ballet, there's a GA or rugby or soccer or whatever. But there's loads of different stuff.
Yeah, if you look at the best athletes in the world, what do? Like Cristiano Ronaldo, look at, say, Gaelic, the lads who are in me, James McCarthy, they all move really, really well. Now, a lot of these athletes would be genetically gifted. So, they are born to play the sport, say. But they all move really well in all crazy range of motion. They can do crazy things with their body because their body has this movement variability. And that's the biggest issue we see with young children. They haven't got that variability because they just stick with this one activity or sport their whole life. And as a result, the body responds to that same movement over and over again. So yes, there's nothing wrong with structured exercise or movement or sports, per se, but make it as varied as possible. Do as many things as you possibly can because never mind that as an athlete getting older, just as a human getting older. Like, even gymnasts who did gymnastics at a young age, people can still move really well and do stuff, Again, it's not that gymnastics is the perfect thing. It's just that it gives you an awful lot of varied movement. And you can then bring that into your adult life, I suppose.
How did you get into all this?
Again, injury, which is most people get into stuff like this. I was, well, actually, I do remember.
Even before that, in terms of fitness.
Oh,
health.
sorry, fitness. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I was a skinny kid. I felt terrible. I wanted to put on muscle because I wasn't confident in terms of me being skinny. I've always been kind of loud, and I love all this stuff, but like sport in general. But then the gym kind of just changed me when I just started training and feeling good about myself. But then after about a year in the gym, I realised the gym environment is just a bit mental. It just doesn't make sense to me. People are coming in. A lot of people are coming into the gym doing things they don't want to do because they just drank all weekend or did something terrible. They're trying to burn calories or doing this activity they don't actually really like just to get exercise done. And that's what I didn't like about it. So I started to explore movement. And there's nothing wrong with exercise again. But our message is, what do you love to do, movement-wise? Do that. Because firstly, you'll do it more because you enjoy doing it. And secondly, if you enjoy doing something, your life is better because you'll actually enjoy doing what you're doing. So, yeah, exercise and the gym environment for me was just to get strong, get big, and not be skinny anymore, I suppose. And that's kind of where it grew from.
Because you have a great, that's why I ask you, you have a great passion for
pain,
what you do.
Pain is the biggest thing with me. So I was in pain for 3 years.
Yeah.
I couldn't train upper body for 3 years. I literally got depressed. I couldn't sleep my left-hand side for 6 months. What I love to do, I was training clients and I felt like a bit of a fraud and I couldn't do what I love to do. I deal with so many people in pain every single day who love what they do and they can't do it. And I understand where they're coming from, So that's where my passion comes from, And again, this idea of empowerment and you taking that responsibility. I can't give you that. I can certainly deliver that message, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. And again, it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. It's definitely more accessible than
you sell it very easily, which is great. And I think if we're going to summarize what we've been discussing over the last kind of 25, 30 minutes, it's the fact that one is to see what you want your body to do and assess it in its current form. And if you're struggling with simple things, sitting for a long period of time,
simple assessments,
getting down on one knee, playing with your children,
exactly.
As you get older, gardening or reluctance to be able to do that,
100%.
That's the first thing.
That's a sign that there could be a limitation. Yeah, definitely.
Then from there is taking personal responsibility, realizing I need to do more and I'm going to do more and I'm going to take the ownership of it and the responsibility of it. 3 is the 1% principle, where it adds up. Every little bit will add up over the course of time.
100%.
And you'll get better and better and better.
The one thing I say to clients all the time is you will not believe what one simple movement, well, first of all, how difficult it can be to do and the difference it can make you move and feel if you stay consistently doing that. It's unbelievable. It's nothing short of remarkable. It literally is life-changing for some people. And
consistency over time is the final tip. So keep it consistent, keep doing it, and over the course of 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you're going to see improvement in your current mobility that you have.
Yes, definitely, 100%.
So move more, don't move less.
Exactly. Literally.
Where can people find out more about you?
I suppose Instagram is our main place to find us. So Brian _Movement101. Website www.movement101.com. But Instagram seems to be where most people kind of find us. So maybe that's your best bet to kind of get onto us. But feel free to reach out, especially because we do talk about things here that are difficult to explain or maybe talk about. So genuinely drop me a message and make sure to keep in touch for any question you have.
Fantastic. Brian O'Loughlin, thank you so much for coming into the Real Health Podcast. We will tag you on our post when we put them out. Folks, you'll be able to swipe up to go to Brian's page. I found him there. I've been following him ever since. As ever, you've been listening to the Real Health Podcast in association with Leia Healthcare. Keep your questions, tips, guest requests coming into us. You know where we are. We're realhealth@independent.ie, at Carl Henry PT on Twitter and on Instagram. We hope you're enjoying all the video content that we've been pushing out over the last couple of weeks. We've lots and lots and lots more to come, and some really exciting guests coming up over the next couple of weeks and months as well. As ever, thank you so much for listening. We're working towards our 2 millionth listener goal. Very, very, very hard. So keep listening to the podcast, and as always, don't forget to rate and review. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Slán go fóill.
Leia Healthcare. It's good to live. Proud sponsor of the Real Health Podcast with Carl Henry.